All right, black and white sports supporters. Well, I got to tell you, I'm not sure I've seen a take by anybody torpedo so fast in all of my life. And what I'm referring to is Nafisia Collier referring to Unrivaled, her co-founded, her co-owned professional women's basketball league that, no matter how you cut it, is a competitor to the WNBA.
When she finally said it, the words didn't just land, they lingered, hanging heavy in the air like the aftermath of a bad decision. What was supposed to be a bold, desperate gamble by the WNBA Players Union has now blown up in spectacular fashion. Their much-hyped alternative, a rival league meant to prove they could survive without the WNBA, has collapsed in real time. The numbers are in, and they are devastating. Viewership has cratered to levels so low they expose a frightening truth. Without the WNBA structure, the entire union's leverage evaporates. This failure sends a shockwave through the league, especially when you consider what would happen if a generational star like Caitlin Clark ever truly contemplated walking away. This isn't merely disappointing. It's an unmistakable warning flare for the future of women's professional basketball.
Her co-owned professional women's basketball league that, no matter how you cut it, is a competitor to the WNBA. On scale, no, but it's pro basketball and it employs WNBA players. That would be what I would call a competitor and a conflict of interest. Slowly but surely you're getting trickles of people calling that out. But still, I mean, the ones that cover this the most, they're scared to death, and they continue to be a propaganda machine for women's basketball. Come on, you got to call balls and strikes. You do. You got to be fair.
Nafisia Collier, one of the co-founders of the rival league Unrivaled, once spoke with unwavering confidence, presenting the venture as a sustainable business and a legitimate alternative for WNBA players. This wasn't just optimism, it was strategy. The league was designed to function as the ultimate bargaining chip during high-stakes CBA negotiations. The message was clear: we don't need the WNBA. But reality has been unforgiving. As viewership steadily collapsed, those confident claims began to sound hollow. What was framed as sustainability now feels more like denial. The numbers don't support the vision, and the bold declaration increasingly resembles a last-ditch effort to prop up a league that is visibly struggling to stay afloat.
Okay, so Unrivaled. Two things have happened. Two things that we predicted. Two things that most every creator out there predicted, across the board. But the mainstream media wouldn't touch. And that's the idea that Unrivaled was going to the idea that Unrivaled was going to actually be a bargaining piece here. And what I mean is, oh, look at us. We've got Unrivaled. We don't need the WNBA. We don't need to sign a CBA.
Collier's dual role, alongside other high-profile WNBA players such as Breanna Stewart, immediately ignited controversy, exposing a massive conflict of interest that many chose to ignore. Unrivaled isn't a harmless side project. It is a direct competitor to the WNBA, employing active players while simultaneously being wielded as negotiating leverage. Yet mainstream media largely sidestepped this ethical minefield, opting instead to act as a promotional arm for women's basketball at all costs. The fundamental question remains unanswered. How can players negotiate in good faith when influential union figures are actively building a rival organization designed to undermine the very league they're bargaining with?
To the point that Nafisia Collier literally made these absurd comments the other day, right before the deadline ran out. Being on the side with Unrivaled, I know what it takes to run a sustainable business. So I think if they find a model that makes that happen, they need to put people in place who can. And of course, the buzzword, the word that everybody really paid attention to was sustainable, which garnered a reaction from me and so many other sports fans going, wait, your ratings weren't great last year.
Now the numbers are public, and they are nothing short of catastrophic. Unrivaled's most recent ratings plunged to an almost unimaginable 0.03 in the critical 18 to 49 advertising demographic. That translates to roughly 30,000 viewers across both televised games. One broadcast barely crossed 110,000 total viewers, while the other struggled to reach 100,000. This isn't just underperformance. It represents a massive collapse from last year's already modest figures. The league didn't just fail to grow, it hemorrhaged its audience, falling drastically short of the threshold required for any claim of long-term viability.
Which garnered a reaction from me and so many other sports fans going, wait, your ratings weren't great last year. There's now just 1,000 people in the stands. I mean, last year you only had 850. What part of this is supposed to be the sustainable model? And why on earth would you consider a league this small and this, I mean, let's be honest, this backyard wrestling, not that I've got anything against wrestling, you guys know I love it, our backyard wrestling, but nonetheless,
Breanna Stewart, a New York Liberty star and both a co-founder of Unrivaled and a vice president on the Players Union Executive Committee, was forced into an awkward and revealing moment. She had to publicly address the league's horrifying ratings collapse. Her explanation felt strained at best. Attempting to downplay the damage, she pointed to last season's premier numbers already labeled as weak, as somehow comparable. Her justification? That fans weren't accustomed to watching women's professional basketball at this time of year. For a league supposedly designed to showcase elite talent, it sounded less like insight and more like spin born out of desperation.
There's levels to this shit, as somebody used to say. So we got Breanna Stewart. She's had to literally come out and address bad ratings. The new ratings are out for Unrivaled from last Friday, and holy shit, they're bad. Now, did anybody expect any of these ratings to be WNBA-like? No, of course not. They never was going to be. But the epic drop-off in ratings at this point, look, we covered the ratings for Unrivaled last year. And they were bad then, but at least there were a lot of
Observers were far less forgiving. The criticism was blunt and unfiltered, with analysts comparing Unrivaled to backyard wrestling, trying to compete with Major League Baseball. Attendance figures only reinforced the ridicule. Last year, crowds barely crossed 1,000 people per game, an increase from a paltry 800 the year before. These numbers are not growing pains. They are signs of a league with no real foundation. The lack of infrastructure, fan engagement, marketing power, and professional polish paints a brutal picture. What was pitched as a serious alternative now looks like a sideshow struggling to justify its own existence.
70,000 viewers, 190,000 viewers, maybe a 200,000 viewer. This is a titanic drop-off. So this was last Friday, right? Unrivaled, Breeze versus Hive. They did a .03 in the 18 to 49 demographic. That's the advertising demographic. That's 30,000 people, folks, on both games. Both games. And then you did 110,000 on one and 100,000 on another.
In the end, the original prediction about Unrivaled's purpose proved entirely accurate. It was never meant to replace the WNBA. It was meant to serve as leverage, a bargaining tool players could point to and say, look, we have options. A way to pressure ownership without committing to a CBA. But the ratings have delivered a crushing verdict. Unrivaled is not leverage. It is not sustainable. And it is certainly not an escape route. Instead of shifting the balance of power, it has exposed the union's overconfidence and revealed just how fragile their negotiating position truly is.
On actual TNT. Not true TV, actual TNT. The NBA pre-game or post-game show, whatever that is, got 50,000 more viewers than an actual game. Than actual games. This is disastrous. for the greed of the players trying to thwart away all this new money that the owners are trying to give them.
What makes these ratings collapse even more staggering is where Unrivaled was broadcast. This wasn't hidden away on some obscure streaming service or forgotten cable slot. This was TNT, a major national network with built-in sports credibility. And yet, despite that prime platform, the NBA pregame and postgame shows airing around Unrivaled still managed to pull in roughly 50,000 more viewers than the actual games themselves. That isn't just embarrassing. It's a devastating indictment. It proves that even premium national placement couldn't overcome the league's fundamental problem, a profound lack of audience interest. The weakness becomes even clearer when you look at who wasn't on the floor. One of the most glaring absences was Angel Reese. The speaker made it plain: when Angel Reese plays, her fans show up. They tune in, they engage, but she didn't play in Unrivaled. And that decision alone stripped the league of a massive, built-in audience. Her absence wasn't accidental, it was a signal, a sign that even among players, there was skepticism about Unrivaled's viability. If one of the league's most recognizable fan magnets wasn't willing to commit, then a critical segment of passionate viewers was always going to be missing. And if losing Angel Reese was a blow, attempts to compensate with other stars failed just as brutally. The analysis didn't sugarcoat it. Aya Wilson, despite her accolades and dominance within the WNBA, is effectively a zero draw for Unrivaled. That statement stings, but the ratings back it up. It exposes an uncomfortable truth. Without the transcendent pull of a player like Caitlin Clark, even elite WNBA stars struggle to attract a large independent audience. The long-held illusion that widespread star power alone could carry a rival league has completely shattered. This entire Unrivaled disaster is increasingly being framed as a product of player greed. Emboldened by a new WNBA media rights deal finally bringing real money into the league, players appeared to push aggressively, demanding more and assuming leverage they didn't actually possess. The warning was blunt: if players price themselves out and still lose money, the entire deal becomes meaningless. That kind of short-sighted approach, paired with the collapse of their alternative league, now threatens the WNBA's hard-won momentum and the future earnings of every player involved. For years, the WNBA struggled without a meaningful media rights deal, severely limiting its financial growth. Now, for the first time, it finally has one, an opportunity that could bring genuine profitability and stability. But that opportunity is fragile. It depends entirely on players not sabotaging it with unrealistic demands. The failure of Unrivaled as a leverage tool means players hold far less power than they believed. Their overestimation of their independent market value could easily jeopardize this critical revenue stream and send the league right back to square one, especially if its biggest star ever feels undervalued or alienated. Throughout all of this, mainstream media played a crucial and damaging role. Acting as a propaganda machine, it refused to acknowledge the glaring flaws and conflicts surrounding Unrivaled. They wouldn't call balls and strikes. Instead, they pushed a false narrative of strength, sustainability, and inevitability. That distortion allowed players to operate under a dangerous illusion of power and marketability. But ratings don't lie. And when the numbers finally surfaced, the truth could no longer be buried. Media complicity in selling that illusion is now an undeniable part of this unfolding crisis. The contrast is terrifyingly clear. Caitlin Clark is playing right now, and the speaker made the point bluntly. If she were involved, the ratings wouldn't be scraping for 100,000 viewers, they'd be pushing 800,000 to 1 million. That hypothetical alone exposes how dependent the WNBA's recent surge truly is on one transcendent talent. While Unrivaled struggles to draw a fraction of that audience, Clark commands 10 times the viewership by herself. Her absence, or even her dissatisfaction, represents an existential threat to the league's newfound popularity and financial stability. NAPSA Collier's earlier boast that players could always come over here and play if the WNBA didn't meet their demands now sounds hollow, even pathetic. Because if Unrivaled isn't viable, then there is no alternative. That leaves players entirely dependent on the very league they attempted to use as leverage without a backup plan. The idea of having nowhere else to play professionally becomes a chilling reality, revealing just how fragile their career options truly are outside the WNBA ecosystem. The WNBA Players Union, through co-founders and leadership figures like Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, fundamentally miscalculated the market. They believed their combined star power and the promise of greater player control would automatically translate into viewership and financial success. Instead, the ratings revealed a massive disconnect between how players value themselves and how audiences actually respond. That misjudgment severely weakens their bargaining position and could force painful concessions in future negotiations. And this failure isn't just about Unrivaled. It's a flashing red warning light for the WNBA itself. It proves beyond doubt that without a generational talent like Caitlin Clark driving interest, even established stars struggle to move the needle. If players alienate their biggest draw through excessive demands, or if Clark grows disillusioned, the league's recent momentum could vanish overnight. The panic is real because the mirror now reflects a truth no one wanted to see. The new media rights deal offered the WNBA and its players a rare golden opportunity for long-term financial growth. But perceived greed, paired with the collapse of Unrivaled, threatens to derail that opportunity entirely. If players overplay their hand in CBA negotiations, believing they have leverage they clearly don't, they risk alienating ownership and undermining the very revenue meant to raise their salaries. This single miscalculation could cost players millions in future earnings. The word sustainable, once proudly used to describe Unrivaled, now stands as a symbol of spectacular failure. A league hemorrhaging viewers and posting abysmal ratings on a major national network is anything but sustainable. Whether this was delusion or deliberate misrepresentation, it exposes a troubling lack of business judgment among certain player leaders. The WNBA Players Union now faces a terrifying, unavoidable truth. Their alternative league has collapsed, stripping them of leverage. Their biggest asset, Caitlin Clark, remains the singular force driving unprecedented attention, a force they cannot afford to alienate. With no viable plan B and star power proven limited outside her orbit, the players' future now depends entirely on not sabotaging the very league they once believed they could challenge.